Welcome to Camp Brain Junk. I'm your counselor, Trace Kerr.
And I'm Misconduct, also your counselor. It's just me, Amy Barton, but doesn't it make me more exciting that I'm Misconduct?
It does, actually.
Lends
I'm kind
a
of jealous.
festive air. It's that time of year when your knee pits are getting sweaty and the air smells like pine needles and kids are headed to summer camp. I have many fond memories of summer camp and lots to share with you today. So let's take a stroll down memory lane and tell you everything you never knew you wanted to know about summer camp.
So I guess maybe what we should do is start out by going back and talking about the history of when we started sending off our children for the summer so we could take a break. Oh, wait, that's just me.
That is parents everywhere. This dates back to that time after the Industrial Revolution where society had really made a major shift. And so we had a generation of people then that had lived a really different lifestyle than their parents had. And in that Victorian era, there was this conviction about nature's moral and physical benefits because people no longer had to spend quite the same amount of time in nature just to survive.
Okay, so if you were growing up in the city and you'd be like, oh, I remember when we used to go and live in the country and milk the cows, and wouldn't that be great? So the nostalgia.
So late 1800s, in the 1870s, 1880s, you started to see on the East Coast where summer camps started to develop. You saw a really big split in what kind, though. There were the sort of camps where the kids are eating off of china plates and the servants are still serving them. And then there's the completely other mindset of parent. Like you send them out the back door with a backpack and a spare pair of shoes and they're chopping their own firewood and they're eating off tin plates outside by the fire. And you still see that difference in camps now, but that was definitely a big divide at the time.
Do you think that's why East Coast and West Coast really has a different culture of camp? Because I don't know about you, but when I was researching camps, you know, that lake camp on the East Coast has been around since like 1916.
Yes.
And, you know, my parents went and their parents went to the same lake thing. And it's, you know, boys on one side of the lake and girls on the other side of the lake. And on the West Coast, I think we weren't civilized enough over here to even really be thinking about camp.
No.
And so it's a different experience, maybe?
Yeah, I definitely think the general culture, the Wild West camp's a little different. We didn't need camp. We were still enjoying civilizing here in the late 1800s. It was still hard to get here out onto the West Coast.
That's true.
In the mid to late 1800s. So I do think there is definitely a delay. You see some camps as old as the YMCA had camps back in the late 1890s. They were serving 5,000 kids then, which that's a big number. But by 1960, their camps served 23,000 or more kids.
Wow.
So YMCA camps tended to be of the military style. So if you have seen Parent Trap, there's definitely some military. They line up for flag in the middle of camp. And most of my camp experiences had definitely had some military elements. You sleep in tents pitched around a parade ground. There's morning inspection and calisthenics. They play taps at night. That's a pretty common camp experience, I think, for sleepover camps.
You know what's really funny is I don't think I ever thought about it until you said that. I've been on both sides of Girl Scout camp, being a leader and being a kid. And I've gone to day camps and overnight camps, and they all kind of have that military quality of, you've changed my whole worldview.
Some of it, I think, is a certain level of self-preservation among the adults.
Keeping order.
That reality that it's like a 10-to-1 ratio or more. Camps really proliferated in the early 20th century. They were not for girls until then. And so girls, we got to vote and do camp around the same time.
Oh, that's
winning. Good. Religious camps, political camps, those are all among the early camps. Apparently, health camps.
That sounds like something Kellogg would be doing. You know, he was big on the Kellogg cereal guy.
Oh, yeah.
And healthful eating and all this kind of stuff. I can imagine all these kids having like cornflakes 3 meals a day and he's checking their bowel movements.
Yes.
Well, there are some benefits of camp.
For sure.
I mean, you said the Victorians, they're getting out there because they want to get back to nature. Well, now the modern benefits of going to summer camp. A lot of sociologists have lots of papers about this.
Just the removal of children suddenly from technology alone would be...
I know, then there's this complete mental breakdown. But they talked about, we have a growth of social skills and physical and mental challenges and gaining confidence and self-sufficiency. And they even did a study on at-risk middle school kids. They took them and they had them in occupation-based summer camps, which I couldn't really find out exactly what they meant by that. I'm going to guess that I was like, what does that mean? Does it mean like...
I'm imagining young linemen learning to climb the pole.
Yeah, it must be... Okay, I guess what they're saying is if you're taking at-risk kids and putting them in a camp that has direction...
Yes.
Then they found that active engagement carried back to their homes, their high-risk environments, and they actually did better because they had built the self-confidence and realized, hey, I can make a fire with some flint and some sticks and things like that. Also, being in camp creates a culture.
It sure does. Absolutely.
And, songs and recipes and stories and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. The first time we recorded our intro at least twice today because Trey said, wow, you got super chirpy there. I work at a summer camp in the summertime at a day camp, and even my demeanor and the way I behave is a little different.
Because you've created this persona, and it seems like I was watching movies of camp counselors doing camp songs.
Yes.
And they are in it to win it, and they're singing this song with all these nonsense words, and they've got hand motions that they have to do, and they're all, this is a repeat after me song. And you can hear all the kids going, this is a repeat after me song. And then they start singing this, and it's just creating this in a very short amount of time. We are Camp Brain Junk, and we are a team, and we're pulling together, and forget about homesickness and forget about parents and forget about using your iPod. We're here to go swim in the lake.
There's huge value as an adult in that environment because it's very Pavlovian. This is a repeat after me song. It creates an immediate behavior for everyone around you.
Yes. And as a introvert who, I like people. I like to talk to people. Clearly, because you can't shut me up. But, introverts recharge their batteries by stepping back and getting some alone time.
That's not a thing at camp.
No, camp is definitely like, yay, we're all going to be together and we're going to charge up our batteries and life is going to be, yeah. And the introvert in me is kind of like, oh, I'm feeling a little, I don't know. You and I did Montessori camp with our kids. And
yes. It's only 3 days.
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But it was exhausting.
Yes.
But it was so funny to be on the bus on the way home. And the extroverted parents were it was like they were on crack. They were like, that was the best. And my battery is so full. And the introverted parents were all kind of leaning towards the window and were like, could you just please
stop looking at me?
Just give me a moment.
Yeah. Yes. It stretches us.
But that's okay. I think because that's the whole point, right? It's to learn that you can be outside your comfort zone. And you'll survive and you'll make some friends and, you could even come back next year. And then I think what I like about that culture building piece is if you've been there before, then you come back and you know the songs and you know the hand things. And
you belong there.
Yes, exactly. Because it's part of your family, even though you're only there a couple weeks a year.
Yeah. And that stretching piece too. I have volunteered as a camp counselor, and as an adult I did the challenge course with the campers because I wasn't the one leading it. And I have these really wonderful, distinct memories of swinging across the rope and making it across. And I'm like, oh, we did it, you guys. We did this thing together. And it did not matter that I was 38 or something and they're like 12. We did this thing together.
So there are different kind of places that you can go to have this kind of experience. I don't know about you, but all my summer camp experience has been like the day camp where you show up with your sleeping bag and your backpack and, you go home and you're completely filthy. But not all summer camp is like this.
That's true.
The East Coast particularly has some summer camps. I was looking for the best summer camps in the country, in the United States. And I came across this one where it was the most expensive summer camps.
I can imagine them having some serious amenities and early camp people rolling over in their graves because tennis was considered a little bit too cosmopolitan for summer camp.
Well, I got to tell you, there's this one that's 26 days. It's boys only and girls only. It's one of those, like we said, they're on opposite sides of the lake kind of thing. So they could maybe paddle out and rendezvous. But it's $6,300 for a month. That was kind of That was kind of the low end
Wow.
for these camps.
That's
yeah.
economy set camp. No heated seats for your
There
children.
was one, it was an action style one. So you could go sailing in the British Virgin Islands. You could do community service in the Galapagos or in Peru. That one was, let's round it to $5,000 and up. So at least you're doing community service. But
And you probably have to get yourself there. That's not like the getting
yeah.
you there cost.
And what killed me on some of these really expensive camps was ages started at 8, 9, 10. I mean, these weren't like high school kids. These were little kids. The Harvard of lake camps was founded in 1916, also on the East Coast.
Yes.
This camp does ages 6 to 15. And if you haven't been grandfathered in, there are a few spots that they interview new people for.
Wow, this is like getting season tickets to the Red Sox.
This is like the fraternity of camps.
Wow.
It's $13,000. They've got the camp horseback riding and the this and the that, but it's super. I mean, I imagined like presidents' children and Congress people, and then like really high business people that are going to the but it has to be somebody that's gone before.
Oh, you got it. That's true.
I mean, 1916. So this is probably somebody's great grandpa who went, and then your grandma went, and then your mom went, and now
This is like Daughters of the American Revolution summer camp.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't have that kind of heritage, so I would be working at that camp. What kind of dishes would I be washing? Fine china, probably, right?
You would
They're
be,
gonna
and
eat
you
on
definitely would
true
not
silver.
be. You definitely would not be cooking things like. Let's see. Yeah, what do you got in this campfire cookbook? You
Well,
definitely.
There's some horrible things. I have an
would-
old camp cookbook, and some of it's recipes just that, camp members have shared with one another, but they're okay. Raise your hand if you've heard of pie iron. So Trace is raising her hand.
Okay, so when you say pie iron, you mean like it looks like you'd put a piece of
About the
toast
size
in
of
there,
a slice of toast. Yep.
and so you'd put your your piece of bread with butter, your cherry pie filling, piece of bread on top, and then you clamp it closed and you stick it in the fire so it gets all toasted.
Yep. So it's 2 pieces of square rectangle shaped iron. They've got a hinge on one side and handles, long marshmallow stick length handles, so you're not going to burn yourself. And you put whatever you want in there and you stick it in the fire.
She's grabbing the recipe book.
Grabbing the recipe book because I kept reading this and having this the Friends episode with the trifle? I'm having this moment over and over in my head, like this can't be one recipe.
Oh, the Friends. Yeah. So you're going to look through there. So the Friends episode, I don't know if you saw it, but one of the characters tries to make a dessert, but 2 of the pages of the recipe book stuck together. So it's got whipped cream and Jell-O, but then it also has ground beef and peas and things in it. It's a disaster.
Yeah, so grab your mental pie irons and get your margarine. You're going to butter 2 slices of raisin bread like you're making grilled cheese. You stick butter side on the iron side, and then I want you to put 4 tablespoons, that's more than a quarter cup, on one slice of peanut butter.
Whoa.
On the other slice, I want you to put 3 tablespoons, that's still a hefty amount, of cheddar cheese spread. And to top it off, to give it a little texture, I would like you to now put 1 tablespoon of bacon bits, clamp those babies together, and stick it in the fire because you are going to eat.
Oh, no.
Yeah. No. This is like a legit recipe in this book. I can't imagine
cheese
eating
spread.
that.
And it's not cheese. It's not like grated
cheese
cheese.
spread.
It's
No.
like something that maybe came out of a can.
We call it real American cheese food at my house.
Anything where you have to put food in the label says that that's a problem, right?
Yes.
If you have to tell me it's food.
It's a food product.
Ugh.
There is a pickled bologna recipe in here. And my favorite part of this recipe, it says you're putting bologna in with the typical pickling spices. And it says, does not need refrigeration. These are counter pickles. Ah!
Okay. I grew up doing like, you know what I remember from camp is you'd get a tuna can. And we put paper, like cardboard and some wax and stuff in there. You were like making a little wood stove in the tuna can. And then in a Folgers coffee can, you would cut a little door in the bottom and flip it over. So what you would do is light that tuna can on fire and stick it under the coffee can so that you could use the bottom of the coffee can as like a grill or
This is like Hikers
skillet.
sterno cans.
Yes, that's
Oh.
what we would do during day camp. And then, you'd have 10 girls each trying to cook a pancake
Yeah.
that would take
10 girls
forever.
eating raw pancakes with a burnt edge.
Because nobody wants to wait until it's done. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
so proud when I had my first solar oven experience as a staffer. I'm trying to get the kids to do a thing together. So we built a solar oven from pizza boxes and we melted marshmallows. And I'm like, look what we did. And then we made Rice Krispie treats. And there is a recipe in this book for solar oven chicken. So
How long does that take?
3-pound chicken. They can do it in 1 hour. I know. I don't.
What?
I'm not going to be trying that, friend.
Are you spatchcocking that chicken?
There's
Are
definitely
you...
chopping it up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. In an hour.
In an hour.
Okay, so that's like Southern California, Texas solar
That's
chicken.
what I'm
because
thinking.
I'm sorry, but in Washington State, if you have your typical July where it rains all the time, you're going to have that chicken in like a week.
Exactly. You and the new things that are growing in it.
It adds flavor. Okay, I'm just going to keep talking about food. The dump cake.
Yes.
The first time I got voluntold to
Yep.
be a camp counselor for Girl Scouts my first time, and we had Dutch ovens and the girls were supposed to make something, and the lady brought me a boxed cake mix, a bag of marshmallows, half a bag of chocolate chips, and a can of 7-Up. There's your cake. And I'm standing there going, what? And the girls were like, oh, we've got this. And so they dumped the cake mix in, and then they threw the marshmallows on top of that, the chocolate chips on top of that. They dumped in the can of 7-Up. Personally, my teeth were killing me just looking at this because I was thinking, oh, it's so sweet. And then we put on the lid. You don't stir.
No.
It's like magic. And then you put the coals on the top and the coals on the bottom, and then it was a cake. Yeah. But I agree with you. I think there is an element of daring.
Some of that is that creating that culture piece too, I'm sure, that having a bonding experience. Everybody eating crunchy rice because none of us are very good at Dutch oven cooking. But that's what's on for cookout.
Well, so now if you could go back and be a little kid again, I was looking up super cool summer camps that I wish I could have gone to. Is there, what kind of camp would you, like young you, be like, Mom, there's this really cool ranch camp and there's horses and fly fishing and overnight horse packing and I really want to go.
Young me loved the pool, which is where adult me works now. So I'm
so you've done it.
I'm reliving that childhood dream.
All right.
I run the pool sometimes at camp. So I totally would have been like, if we could, I was never good at the boating, but I would have loved it. Any water camp. If we could have had dolphins at my water camp.
Oh, okay. Well, so I found this camp. There's this dolphin lab in Florida.
Ooh.
And you go and you assist. The first time you go, you're learning about dolphins. And then the next time you go, you're starting to help feed the dolphins. And then your last step is that you're going into the dolphin area and you're working with them and having them do demos like they do in the zoo. Yes.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
That would be super wonderful. I know. And then there's also a sea turtle camp in Hawaii. So you can go as a high school kid and you're doing research with the sea turtles and you get to work with them and they're right there. And because they were talking about the kids at the sea turtle one and even in the dolphin lab doing actual research.
That's excellent.
Actually writing stuff down and learning stuff. And and then there was this one camp. MIT does a women's tech program. It's a 4-week intensive class that you try to apply for between your junior and senior year. You do it during your junior summer. And if your parents make less than $120,000 a year, you can do it for free if you get in.
Ooh.
I was like, yes, my daughter is signing up for that camp.
And they go to MIT?
Yeah, they're there, and it was engineering and like computers.
That would be excellent to have that elite experience of the greatest minds in this field. And
yeah, I almost feel like whereas back in the day we were doing summer camp for you need to get out to nature, and we still have that. I almost feel like the West Coast version of camp has become what kind of experiences can I get? Like what's resume building for me?
Yes.
Almost like camp has become a young kid's internship.
Yes. It's a bit of a stepping stone. My daughter volunteers at summer camp. She enjoys it very much, but she also makes sure to log what she has done so that it can go on a college resume someday. I do love the many camps now that you find that are some of the ones that we've just talked about that are geared toward a particular vocation or interest. I also love the inclusive nature of camps now. That's one really wonderful thing. There is a camp out here on the West Coast called Camp Sticks, and they do a Camp Twigs that is geared for diabetic campers. So they can have all the camp experiences with lots of medical professionals. So it's a safe thing for them to do, and it's not a big deal thing. They're not the odd camper out that's always left behind. It's just a part of their camp day, and it's very inclusive, and love some of those opportunities kids have now.
Also, what I like about these camps that are more specific to an interest, you know, when I think I was 8, I went to what I thought was horse camp. And it was actually regular camp. And then for a half hour a day, you know, you got to like pet a horse, and then they put you on it and walked you around in a circle. And then that was it. And 8-year-old me.
Was it an overnight camp? Were you trapped there?
Oh, yeah, it was overnight. And I made it to Wednesday. We got dropped off on Monday.
Oh, no.
Wednesday, I'm like, done. I want to go home, and this isn't what you promised me. I have this memory of the camp counselor. He's got my teddy bear, and he's like holding Teddy, and he's got his arms. He's like, Teddy thinks that it would be great to stay at camp, and we don't need to call Mommy and Daddy. Doesn't, right, Mr. Teddy? And he turns and I was looking I can remember wishing that man would die of a stroke, you know, because I was just like,
if I were a witch, this would go really differently.
Put down my bear. He is not talking. He does not want to stay here. This was false advertising.
I think we can't not discuss the whole, you're trapped at camp in some ways as a kid, and some of those experiences that are also, it's very highs and lows. And I had lots of highs at camp, but the lows are low. I remember going to, the mail didn't go as fast when I was a young person, my friends. And so my mom sent something in the mail like Wednesday, and everybody else had been getting, and this is my first sleepover camp, and it's my friends from my campfire group, and they're all getting mail. Everyone had mail. And I have this distinct memory, and I'm a pretty upbeat as a general rule person, but I remember laying on my cot facing the wall and ignoring everyone because I hadn't gotten mail, and my heart was broken, and I was also trapped. And yeah, the lows are pretty, you're exhausted, you're crabby, you're hungry and tired.
It's like, what is it, Biodome? You know, where we're trying to figure out if you can send people to Mars and they won't all kill each other.
Yes.
I think that's what camp is. You know, you take all of human experience and you add some hormones because they're kids, and then you just crush it into a black hole, and you're either gonna come out, you know, a whole new person.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe camp isn't for you. Okay, I've gone in a really weird direction. Let me try that again.
It's true, though. You find out if you are one of those folks that loves that challenge of interpersonal relationships, or if you're going to do your darndest to dodge that.
But I think we all need to do some of it. You know?
I'm a parallel player. I do not want to do a thing with you. I want to do a thing near you. And so camp stretches me in a really huge way.
Before we go,
do you want me to sing you out?
I totally think that
we didn't even go down the road of very many camp traditions.
We
there
didn't.
Are many. There are camp traditions are myriad. They're usually kind of small things that continue to create that culture and those Pavlovian responses. And one of them in my camp experience has been that we sing you out. So you have to walk under the arch of, and this is at 4 p.m. at the end of day camp. So we all raise our hands in an arch, and you have to walk under the stinky armpits of all the adults in camp. It's a little bit of hazing, I think. And so I'm going to sing you out. Happy campers are we, having fun 'neath the trees. And when we are gone, you'll remember our song, 'cause this is Camp Brain Junk, Camp Brain Junk. And that's it, Camp Brain Junk.
I like it.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, if you don't want to go to Brain Junk Camp, please come visit us at brainjunkpodcast.com. We'll have pictures and more notes for you on what kind of things that you might need to take to camp. Oh, I like that. I've got a giant list from Montessori Camp where they talked about everything you're supposed to bring and then the stuff you weren't supposed to bring. And then you just smuggle it in your kid's bag anyway. For this and other wonderful episodes, look for Brain Junk wherever you find your podcasts. We tweet at MyBrainJunk, and you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Brain Junk Podcast.
Trace and I will catch you next time when we share more of everything you never knew you wanted to know, and I guarantee you will not be bored. Fill up your water bottles now.